quite the moment, as you can imagine. The art of the deals all over the Twitter sphere right now, as people say, I mean, maybe this is the way he planned it. To John's point, Charlie, about the Treasury Secretary saying maybe you could say that he goaded China into a bad position for themselves.
Well, I want to tell you right now that Donald Trump outsmarted the world. Trust me, I'm an American. I support my president. But that's not really what happened here, from what I understand. And I know I'll get pushback, but here's what it is. What happened in the bond market overnight, the spike in yields on the 30-year and the 10-year bond, which showed that people were dumping our bonds. And who were those people dumping our bonds? Japan, the biggest holder of bonds, was selling bonds. That's what I'm getting from some very big money managers. China, maybe to some extent, but it was largely Japan and others. If you have a mass sale of bonds, that means people are losing confidence in the U.S. economy, on the ability to do deals with us. And from what I understand, this is what forced the hand of this 90-day reprieve. We have no deals, right? There's nobody that is really there saying this is what we're going to do. And they paused it anyway.
The great negotiator, the great deal maker, the genius that's Donald Trump can't even get his patriot and Trump lover Charlie Gasparino to spin his anticlimactic capitulation on his trade war that was revealed in a social media post.
This is amateur hour, and it needs to stop. What does this even mean for your negotiating strategy? How are you in charge of negotiation if the president is tweeting about this from wherever the hell he is?
The president was elected, and he runs the trade policy, and I advise him and execute his trade policy.
Who executes the trade policy?
I execute the trade policy.
Did you know that this was happening?
We have been discussing all kinds of
And there's another
options.
member of the cabinet, Bessent, who just canceled coming to the Hill to avoid talking about the market because it's in turmoil. This in just days, because there was no strategy, there was no plan. Is this market manipulation?
No.
Why not? If it was a plan, if it was always the plan, how is this not market manipulation?
It's not market manipulation, sir.
Well, then what is it? Because it sure is not a strategy.
We're trying to reset the global trade system.
That's
offshored all of our factories.
And what has that done? How have you achieved any of that? But to enact enormous harm on the American people. So if it's not market manipulation, what is it? Who's benefiting? What billionaire just got richer? And all the while, there are not even any Republicans left in this hearing. They all left because they don't even want to defend this. But meanwhile, the speaker is rushing to the floor to pass a budget reconciliation to screw America by passing the biggest tax cut in history on the backs of the American people. WTF? Who's in charge? Because it sure doesn't look like it's the trade representative. You just got the rug pulled out from under you.
Representative Horsford was cooking the trade rep that wasn't even clued in on this post from Donald Trump that tried to hide the fact that he got burned by his own tariff policy. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I'm hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125% effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So he started with extra aggression towards China so that the people that he figures will stop reading wouldn't have the attention span to make it to the part where he caved and put a pause on his trade war with the entire world. So the penguins of the herd in McDonald Islands were apparently playing chess while Trump was playing checkers.
Companies are pouring back into our country with plants. There's a run on sites. There's a run on old plants. Most of them are being ripped down for new plants. They've stopped building in Mexico 4 or 5 plants, and they're all coming into the United States. I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and you know what I'm doing too. But as you know, the corrupt globalist establishment that ruled our country for decades is now complaining that I'm doing exactly what I pledged to do in the campaign. All of these things, tariffs, the men and women's sports, everything. I've spoken to many countries. They all want to do, just so you understand the power of what I'm doing. Every country is calling and being very solicitous of us. Very, very nice. They're being very nice. And I got elected on that basis. We explained it. You know, the American people understand it a lot better than the media, but the media understands it.
Moving forward, the president will talk to any country that picks up the phone to call, and I can tell you the phones have been ringing off the hook, wanting to talk to this administration, this president, and his trade team to try to strike a deal. And it's because the world knows that they need the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumer. The president has a lot of leverage on his side.
So have enough people decided to rub their eyes and finally recognize that this guy and his gang of idiots are simply unqualified and extraordinarily clueless to how really anything works? You know, are we ready to move on from the drunk driver behind the wheel and pull the car over to the shoulder? You know, because those loud rippling sounds that have been roaring in our ears since January when we drifted off the highway, you know, they're kind of getting out of control. So how are Trump and Caroline Leavitt going to explain that after all that talk about how their phones are ringing off the hook with world leaders looking for a deal that gives every American $1 million, that they've been too scared to pick up the phone? According to one official from the Philippines, they were still waiting for a reply to the request for a meeting. The United Kingdom pitched the White House on a framework for a trade deal, but failed to avoid the tariff increases. Another foreign diplomat said their government was reaching out to various Trump aides at all levels, but many either were not responding or were unwilling to do anything beyond listen, probably because they had nothing to talk about other than Trump's golf handicap. So more from this, where they also pointed out, it's a sign that even as the administration tries to reassure financial markets, business leaders, and fellow Republicans that they have an end game for the market-shaking duties, the White House is still very far from reaching any substantive trade deals with major foreign partners. Rapid progress will be even harder because now the administration is trying to negotiate bilateral deals with nearly 100 countries simultaneously to achieve a murky set of goals. You know, it's embarrassing. But more importantly, it's done potentially irreparable damage to the trust that many of our allies in trade have with us. What reason does anyone except blind MAGA supporters have in believing this president won't pull another damaging stunt because someone punctured his paper-thin skin? He's the guy that starts a fight, gets his ass kicked, and then all of his friends get jumped just for hanging out with him. And in case you thought this latest worldwide blunder has given this administration any humility, well, you haven't really been paying any attention.
Jayar Jackson, can you explain more of the decision-making on what feels like a reversal here? I mean, just these went into effect less than 15 hours ago, these tariffs. Why the pause now? What led to that?
No. Again, President Trump created maximum negotiating leverage for himself, and which tariffs went into effect 15 hours ago? The ones that we have lowered went into effect a week ago. They were announced a week ago, and we have just been overwhelmed by the response from mostly our allies who want to come and negotiate in good faith.